There was a toothbrush in our bathroom I didn't recognize. It was gray. Not mine. Not hers. Still wet. That's what I noticed first. But I said nothing. I walked back downstairs, sat at the dinner table, and tried not to stare at the way she was texting with both thumbs like her life depended on it. She laughed once, quiet, sharp. Not at anything I said. Not at anything I was part of. I'd spent the last 3 weeks trying to fix something she kept pretending wasn't broken. I made breakfast. I folded her laundry. I even hand-washed her favorite sweater after she spilled wine on it, only to find it stuffed in the trash behind empty vodka bottles. She said she didn't remember throwing it away. I pretended to believe her. But I wasn't sleeping. I was dreaming in question marks. Waking up to a woman who looked like my wife, but didn't feel like her anymore. We hadn't touched in almost a month. I'd started flinching when she reached for her phone. That's how far gone I was. Then came that night. I was sitting in the living room, pretending to read. She came in wearing a new dress I hadn't seen before. Tight. Glittery. Not her style. Or at least, not the style she wore around me. I asked, going somewhere? She looked me dead in the face and said, I'm going to meet someone who still makes me feel like I matter. She didn't flinch. I froze. Then she added, with that little tilt of her head she does when she wants to twist the knife. My ex never made me feel this unappreciated. I stared at the floor for 5 seconds. Maybe 6. Then I stood up, walked into the kitchen, opened the drawer with our emergency cash, took what was mine, and only mine, and walked out the front door without a jacket. I didn't leave a note. I didn't even close the door. I walked to the corner of our street, sat on the curb, and let the cold bite into me until my phone buzzed. It was her sister. 3 missed calls. Then a voicemail. What the hell did you do? She's not eating, not talking. She's a mess. She keeps asking where you are like you vanished into smoke. Just come home. You proved your point. But here's the thing. I hadn't proved anything yet. Not even to myself. I didn't check into a hotel. I didn't go to a friend's place. I walked 3 miles in the cold until I found an all-night laundromat, sat down on one of those hard plastic benches between the machines, and just stared. I must have looked insane. Hoodie over my head, phone off, watching someone's socks spin like they had more direction in life than I did. That's when I noticed I had her perfume on my sleeve. That stupid vanilla one I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. It used to drive me crazy, in a good way. Now it made me nauseous. I didn't sleep. Around 6 a.m., I turned my backup phone on, just to see what the damage was. Her sister had called again. Twice. Then came a text. She hasn't eaten. She's curled up on the floor. Please, just come back. You made your point. I didn't reply, because I didn't know what point I was trying to make. I just knew I couldn't go home until I figured out what exactly had broken. Was it me? Was it her? Or something worse, something I didn't want to admit? I got back into town the next afternoon and parked across from our house, hidden behind a plumber's van. I watched the windows. Lights were off. No movement. But then, the side door opened. A man walked out. Tall. Hoodie pulled low. Holding his toothbrush. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. He got into a black SUV. I memorized the plates. Then I pulled out the notepad app and typed one word. Derek. Remember that name I once asked her about? The cousin? The one she said I was crazy for even mentioning? Turns out, Derek drives a $70,000 SUV and has a toothbrush in my house. The rage didn't hit me right away. It was slow, like hot syrup down your spine. I wasn't surprised, but I was so tired. Tired of being gaslit. Tired of doubting myself. Tired of loving someone who kept comparing me to someone she was clearly still seeing. So I waited. For more hours. Then, when the street got quiet, I walked up to the door and let myself in. She was sitting on the floor in the kitchen, in a hoodie 3 sizes too big, red-eyed, hair a mess. She looked up like I was a ghost. No anger. No guilt. Just pure panic. Where have you been? She whispered. I didn't answer. She reached out to touch my leg like she needed proof I was real. Then she said something that almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was so sickly ironic. She said, You can't just disappear like that. It's cruel. 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 I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. I turned around, and I walked back out, because I had a new plan now, and she had no idea what was coming next. I didn't go far after leaving the second time. Just around the block, actually. Sat in my car with the engine off, watching the clouds drag themselves across the sky like everything was stuck in slow motion. I wasn't thinking clearly. My fingers were numb, but not from the cold, just from gripping the steering wheel so tight. I wasn't angry in the explosive, throw things kind of way. I was something colder, quieter, a kind of exhaustion that felt like grief. And then I started thinking about all the things I'd overlooked. All the times she said, "You're overreacting," or "That's not what it looks like." The late work meetings, the phone turned face down, the locked bathroom door, and most of all, the way I started apologizing for everything, just to keep the peace. I once apologized for buying the wrong brand of olive oil. Like I was walking through a minefield where every bottle and breath could set something off. So I did something I'd never done before. I opened my laptop and pulled up our home security login. I'd never used it before. She handled it all. Cameras, app access, everything. But I'd set up the account years ago. I still had the master password. And when I logged in, the footage was there. The backyard camera showed him clearly. Derek, arriving around midnight, leaving just before 4 a.m. Not once, not twice, for times over 2 weeks. Always when she claimed she had late calls or needed time alone. I watched her hug him like she used to hug me, her head on his chest, the way she touched his arm like it was a habit. The worst part? She looked happy. Not fake, Instagram happy. Not the forced smile she gave me during dinners. She looked relaxed, like she could finally breathe, like I was the one suffocating her this whole time. And still, I didn't scream. I didn't smash anything. I sat there in silence and started writing down dates, times, every moment he was there, every detail I could extract. Then I made a backup drive, uploaded the clips to a private server, and called an attorney. No, I didn't file yet. I just asked questions about assets, about spousal conduct, about hidden income, about what happens when one partner uses marital property to house someone else. The attorney said something I hadn't expected. Don't confront her yet. Document everything. The more you gather before she knows you know, the more control you have. Control. That word hit different. Because for years, I'd given up every inch of it just to keep her from walking away. Now, I was the one walking quietly behind her lies. And every step made her castle crack. She still didn't know I'd seen him. She still thought I'd come crawling back. But I was done crawling. I was going to burn this thing down with silence. The strange thing is, once I knew the truth, really knew it, with evidence burned into my hard drive and time-stamped betrayal etched into my memory, I stopped needing to fight. The obsession with proving it vanished. I didn't want her to admit anything anymore. Her silence was louder now. Her excuses didn't sting. It was like watching a rerun of a show I used to love before realizing the ending was garbage all along. I returned to the house the next morning as if nothing had happened. She was in the kitchen wearing that same oversized hoodie, the one she cried in the night I left. She looked up like a deer expecting headlights. Only this time, they didn't come. I said good morning. Calm. Even. Then I poured myself coffee. Didn't ask about where she'd been. Didn't mention her sister. Didn't even glance at her phone, which was flipped face down as always, glowing every few seconds with another unread notification. That's when she started getting nervous. Because I wasn't chasing anymore. When she asked if I was okay, I said I was just tired. And I meant it. Not the kind of tired you fix with sleep. I meant soul tired. Years of gaslighting tired. Loving someone who's looking past you tired. She tried small talk. Asked if I'd eaten. Asked if I was going to work. Asked if I wanted to do takeout later. The kind of nonsense she hadn't cared about in months. I just nodded, smiled faintly, and kept sipping my coffee. By day 3, she was watching me more than I was watching her. She started texting less when I was in the room. I caught her checking my reflection in the TV screen while I read. I noticed her opening and closing the hallway closet like she was checking if something was missing. That's when I realized she felt it. Not guilt. Not remorse. Instability. The rug starting to slip. She didn't know if I was unraveling or planning something. And I let her sit in that uncertainty. I changed all my passwords. Locked down every financial account. Removed her as a beneficiary on anything I could without legal notice. She didn't even notice the mail that came in my name. But I saw hers, and one envelope in particular caught my eye. A letter from a leasing agency in another city. I opened it. Yeah, I know, invasion of privacy. But at this point, that ship had sailed. The letter confirmed an apartment reservation. First month's rent paid. Move-in date, 2 weeks from now. Name on the lease, Derek. Hers was listed as the domestic partner. So this was her plan. Soft exit. Make me feel crazy. make herself look like the victim of a cold husband who just walked away, then quietly slide into a fresh start with her ex while I sat around wondering what I did wrong. But she miscalculated something. She thought I'd break down. Instead, I evolved. And now, I was going to help her pack. Just not in the way she expected. She started waking up before me. Not to make coffee, or jog, or work. She never did any of those things. No, she started waking up just to watch me. I could feel her eyes on me from across the bed. I pretended to stay asleep, just to let her study me in silence. I wanted her to wonder what was going on inside my head. I wanted her to sit in the same uncertainty she used to leave me drowning in. The shift was subtle, but it was real. She began clinging to the routines she'd abandoned months ago. She kissed me goodbye before work, something she hadn't done since spring. She started texting during the day again. Sure things. Hey, how's your day? Want me to pick up dinner? But I wasn't fooled. I replied with the same emotional flatline she'd served me for half a year. I didn't push. Didn't ask about Derek. I didn't even confront her about the lease letter I'd tucked into my jacket and locked in my car's glove box. Instead, I waited. I waited because people like her don't confess. They collapse. And she was collapsing. By the end of the week, she looked like she was aging in fast forward. Her hair was always tied up. No makeup. Always anxious. She was clearly checking my phone when I left the room, which I made even easier by leaving it face down but unlocked. There was nothing on it, of course. I'd created a new device for everything. New bank logins, new email, even a second cloud drive. The real me had gone underground. The old me, the desperate version who once begged her to love him again, was a ghost she couldn't chase anymore. And then she broke. It happened on a Thursday night. She came home early, 2 hours earlier than usual. Her eyes were red, her hands shaking. She didn't even take off her coat. She just stood in the doorway like she didn't know what house she was walking into anymore. I canceled the lease, she said softly, like it was a confession. I told Derek it was a mistake. I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't even look up from my laptop. She took a step closer, like she was trying to feel something, anything, between us. He's not who I thought he was, she continued. It was stupid. It was never real. I just nodded once and closed my laptop. That silence crushed her more than screaming ever could have. She tried again. I know I hurt you. I didn't mean to compare you to him. It was just a moment. I felt lost. You've been lost for months, I said, not unkindly. You just finally looked up and realized no one's waiting for you. Her face crumbled. I walked past her without saying another word, grabbed my coat, and left. Because I didn't need to tell her I knew. She already felt it in every word I didn't say. The morning after she told me she canceled the lease, I found her sitting on the porch with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders and a mug of coffee she hadn't touched. Her eyes were glassy, distant, like she'd spent the entire night wide awake, trying to rewind her choices in her head. But there's no rewind button for betrayal. You can't unsay things like, my ex made me feel more appreciated. You can't uninvite a man into your bed and pretend he didn't leave his toothbrush behind. I said nothing to her, just stepped over the edge of her silence like it wasn't there. That day, she tried to be normal. She cooked breakfast, something she hadn't done in months. She played music in the kitchen. She asked if I wanted to go to the movies that night. She was pretending to be the wife I used to know. But it was too late. She wasn't that woman anymore. She had hollowed out her own role in my life, and now she was trying to wear its skin like it would fool me. But I wasn't the same either. And I think she realized that when she caught me moving the files off the hard drive. She thought I didn't see her watching me from the hallway, her eyes darting between the screen and the small USB drive I had plugged in. That's when she started to unravel. The next few hours were a blur of her pacing, fake coughing to get my attention, opening drawers loudly like she was looking for something, anything, to interrupt the silence. Around 8 p.m., she snapped. She stormed into the room and slammed her phone down in front of me. You want to look through it? She shouted. Is that what you've been waiting for? Go ahead. Check everything. I deleted it all anyway. I didn't flinch. She looked stunned that I didn't pick it up. Are you serious? She snapped. You've been punishing me for weeks like you're some kind of saint, but you won't even ask me what happened. I closed the laptop calmly. You just admitted there was something to delete. That's all I needed. She froze. Her eyes widened, mouth slightly open like she hadn't meant to say that out loud. She stood there for several seconds, caught between fight and collapse. Clay, she whispered. That was the first time she'd said my name in a long time, like it actually meant something. I made a mistake, but I didn't sleep with him. I swear. That's interesting, I said, standing up. Because I never asked if you did. Her face drained. The silence between us had been a slow burn, but now it exploded. I panicked, she admitted, stepping back. I didn't know how to fix it. I thought if I showed you I cared again, if I erased it. You didn't erase it, I said. You just added more layers to it. She collapsed into the chair like the wind had been knocked out of her. I didn't mean to lose you. I looked at her. For the first time, really looked. And I didn't see the woman I married. I saw someone who only valued me when I became something she could no longer predict or control. I was never lost, I said. You just stopped looking. Then I left her there, in a quiet house filled with her own echoes, because the real reckoning hadn't even started yet. The next morning, she was gone. No note, no text, just a cold half-cup of coffee and her phone missing from the charger. I didn't panic. I knew exactly where she was. Sure enough, by noon I received a message from an unknown number. No name, just the text. You think you're clever. Let's talk before this gets worse. I smiled, for the first time in weeks. I knew she'd run to Derek. I expected it. After all, that was the only place left that still looked like a fantasy to her. The only place she hadn't ruined yet with the weight of reality. She was desperate, and people like her always reach for the last branch, even if it's rotten. But what she didn't know was that I'd already sent the footage to Derek's wife. I hadn't even spoken to her, didn't need to. The recordings were sent anonymously, time-stamped, quiet, cold, just like the way her affair had unfolded. There was no rage, no accusations. Just proof, pure and brutal, from one stranger to another. And from the look of the sudden radio silence coming from her end, I knew it had landed. When she came back that evening, she walked in like a completely different person. Pale, lips trembling, mascara smudged like she hadn't cried so much as clawed her own face trying not to. She didn't say a word at first. She just stared at me, waiting for me to ask. I didn't. She finally broke the silence with, "You contacted her, didn't you?" I didn't deny it. She nodded slowly, like she was calculating how much lower she could possibly fall. "He kicked me out," she muttered. Didn't even let me explain. Said I was a liar from day one. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel anything. That's the scary part. When someone betrays you deeply enough, the revenge doesn't satisfy you. It just confirms what you already knew, that the version of them you once loved never existed. She sat down on the edge of the couch, trembling, trying to speak. I didn't love him. Not like I loved you. I was stupid. I thought you'd stopped caring, and I wanted to feel wanted. You wanted to be chased, I said quietly, even if it meant destroying the person who never stopped choosing you. Her face twisted in something between shame and grief. Can't we try again? Please, just tell me what to do. I'll do anything. I stood there in silence for several long seconds. Then I said, "You can start by packing." She flinched like I'd hit her. "This house is in my name. Everything in it came from years of my work, my savings, and my loyalty. And now, you're going to leave it just like I left the idea of us, quietly, without a fight." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't move. She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. She opened her mouth to speak again, but I shook my head once, slowly. Because the part she never understood was this: forgiveness isn't the opposite of punishment. Sometimes it's just walking away and letting the other person live in the mess they made. And I was almost ready to leave her there for good. Almost. She didn't fight it. That was the last surprise she ever gave me. She sat on the couch, holding her breath like maybe the longer she waited, the more likely I'd change my mind. But eventually, she stood. She went upstairs and quietly started folding her clothes. No yelling, no slamming doors, no tears that I could hear. Just the sound of zippers and hangers and silence. It felt strange, after everything, after the lies, the gaslighting, the betrayal. This was how it ended. With calm, with finality. By evening, her car was gone. The house didn't feel emptier. It felt lighter. I made dinner for myself that night, not out of sadness, but habit. I sat down at the table, forked the food into my mouth, and realized something unexpected. I didn't miss her. Not the real her. Not the version I'd finally seen without the fog of love clouding everything. And somewhere between the second and third bite, I smiled. It wasn't the smile of revenge. It wasn't satisfaction in her downfall. It was the smile of someone who had finally stopped begging to be enough for someone who never deserved them in the first place. Over the next few weeks, I started taking my life back in pieces. I reconnected with old friends I drifted from because I was too busy trying to fix someone who didn't want to be fixed. I joined a local hiking group, something I'd always wanted to do, but she said was too boring. I went to a coffee shop and read for hours without checking my phone. No anxiety, no eyes watching my screen, no staged laughs from across the table. And about 3 months later, something happened I didn't expect. I met someone. It wasn't cinematic or wild. She wasn't some manic pixie dream girl who swooped in to fix me. She was kind. She listened. She didn't compare me to anyone. And when I told her I liked lavender in my tea, she remembered. It wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. And after everything I'd lived through, peace felt like the most radical kind of love. So if you're watching this, wondering if you're going to survive the betrayal, if the silence will ever stop echoing, if the hurt will ever dull, the answer is yes. But not because someone else saves you. Because you do. Because you stop begging. Because you start walking. Because you finally remember that the right person doesn't make you feel like you're too much or not enough. They just see you and stay.